U.S. President Joe Biden warned the country not to repeat the mistakes the U.S. made in response to the 9/11 attacks. But is Israel doing just that? And why is the U.S. refusing to call for a ceasefire? I'll ask the director of the award-winning film Fahrenheit 9/11, author and activist Michael Moore.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. You, of course, made a very famous movie called Fahrenheit 9/11, which criticized the U.S.'s response to the attacks of September 11, 2001. You chronicled the panicked rush to allow the government to spy on its own citizens, the decision to invade Iraq, a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, and the ways that the defense industry profited off the war. Israel is now calling October 7th their own 9/11. What do you make of that comparison? And do you see similarities or parallels to how the Israelis are responding?
Well, ironically, it's a very apt description in the sense in terms of how the United States responded to 9/11 and how Israel is responding now. And I think President Biden, both when he was there and since he's come back to the United States, has essentially said, don't make the mistakes that we made, that we were very much in a rush toward revenge. We were everybody here, anybody who remembers that day, it was frightening. It was a sense of pretty much, I'm guessing how most Israelis have felt for many years. Something like this would never happen. And then it happens. And the fact that it took hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours before help arrived, I think has discombobulated a lot of people in a sense of kind of utter horror and fear. Human beings do not act well when they come from a place of fear and terror. That's why a lot of times terrorism does its job. But I want to say that waking up that morning, that Saturday morning on October 7th, it's never a good day on this planet when you wake up and you hear that 1,400 of our Jewish brothers and sisters have been slaughtered. It's none of us, I think, want to live in that world. And so I think I understand all the initial responses, and I understand the response and the desire for revenge, having gone through that time and seen all the mistakes we made, as you said, by first invading Afghanistan, then invading Iraq. For what?
That's an interesting question, the for what. The what was this really about question in regard to 9/11 led people to say, okay, this was maybe just a pretext, for invading Iraq. Do you worry that the Israeli government may similarly use October 7th as a pretext to take over more of Gaza, to expand in the West Bank, or maybe go to war with Iran? Could this moment of horror and fear turn into an opportunistic moment for something else?
Well, I think it already has. And let me just say this, and this is what maybe one issue that most people on the right or the left, pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-human life, and I think, I'm guessing just the polls I've seen just out of Israel, Netanyahu has to go. The people were not protected. What was he doing? Why had they pulled the army back? Why? We know one reason they were pulled back into the West Bank was to support the settlers and their violence against the Palestinians. I mean, he's going to have to answer for this. It's not going to go well for him. And I think that it's very hard to trust things that are coming out of his administration. And the slaughter that we're witnessing now is so, I don't know how to put words to it, frankly. I mean, just what's happened the last few nights, but really what's happened the last few decades. And that I, as an American, I'm helping to fund that. The United States is the bank.
Let me ask you about that funding, Michael. That's so important, right? Because on the one hand, as you mentioned earlier, President Biden says, hey, Israel, don't make the mistakes we made. We went looking for justice and we made mistakes. At the same time, he's asking for more military aid. He said that, innocents being killed is just the price of waging a war. You can't square that circle easily. What do you do? What should the U.S. be doing?
Well, we should not be trying to increase the slaughter. We should not be funding the war. I think, most Americans have no problem with making sure that there are no more Israelis killed and providing for the defense. But that's really not what's going on right now. How do you justify the slaughter of children? And some of these nights, half of the dead, half of the wounded are children. What are we getting back? What are we trying to do? What did the children do? And how are we defending Israel by having more dead children? And anybody who can't say right now, especially people who say, oh, I support Israel and I will, defend Israel, and then support and fund the massacre of innocent civilians and children. You have no credibility then when you say that you support Israel.